Welcome to Biblical Wisdom for Today. In today's video, we're going to explore a topic that affects us all: how to avoid the distractions of the world and stay focused on what truly matters. In a time when our attention is constantly pulled in different directions, the Bible offers clear guidance on how to guard our hearts and prioritize our relationship with God. As we dive into this discussion, remember to subscribe to our channel for daily biblical insights that help you navigate life's challenges. Let's explore how we can stay on track and avoid the distractions that can pull us away from God.
1 John 2 verse 15 warns us, "Do not love the world or anything in the world." This verse isn't saying that we can't enjoy life, but it's a reminder that we should be cautious about what captures our hearts. The world is full of distractions that can pull us away from our devotion to God, and it's easy to get caught up in them without realizing it. It's not just about avoiding sinful activities. Even neutral activities like hobbies, shopping, or scrolling through social media can become distractions if they consume too much of our time and energy. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us that there is a time for everything, and we must be mindful not to let these things take over the time meant for our spiritual growth. The world is designed to distract us. Satan uses the world to keep us occupied with things that don't matter in the grand scheme of eternity. In 1 Corinthians 7 verses 29 to 31, Paul warns us that the time is short and that we should use our time wisely, not getting too attached to the things of this world. Social media, in particular, is a major distraction for many of us. While it can be a tool for connection, it can also become an obsession if we're not careful. Ephesians 5 verses 15 to 17 advises us to be wise and make the most of our time, understanding what the Lord's will is. Constant scrolling and checking notifications can steal valuable time that could be spent in prayer or serving others. The pursuit of material things can also lead us away from God. It's easy to get caught up in the latest trends, gadgets, or even home improvements. While there's nothing wrong with enjoying these things, 2 Timothy 4 verse 10 warns us about the danger of loving the world too much. Demas, who was once a fellow worker with Paul, deserted him because he loved the world. It's important to set boundaries and prioritize what truly matters. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 6 reminds us that there is a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Setting limits on how much time we spend on non-essential activities helps us maintain a healthy balance and keeps our focus on God. Distractions can weaken our spiritual lives. When we spend too much time on things that don't matter, can start to drift away from God. Matthew 6 verse 21 reminds us that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If we treasure worldly things, our hearts will inevitably move away from God. Over time, distractions can lead to spiritual complacency. When we let worldly things take up too much space in our lives, we risk becoming lukewarm in our faith. Revelation 3 verse 16 warns us about being lukewarm, stating that God will spit you out of my mouth. Staying spiritually engaged requires intentional effort and focus. Distractions can also lead to spiritual neglect. When we spend too much time on worldly pursuits, we can neglect important spiritual practices like prayer, Bible study, and fellowship with other believers. This neglect weakens our connection with God and leaves us vulnerable to spiritual attacks. The consequences of distraction are real and lasting. Just as Demas left Paul because he loved the world, we too can fall away from our faith if we're not careful. 2 Timothy 4 verse 10 serves as a warning that loving the world more than God can lead to spiritual ruin. Satan uses distractions to keep us from God's purpose for our lives. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world. Distractions are one of the enemy's tools to keep us from fulfilling God's plan for our lives. To combat distractions, we need to be intentional in our spiritual practices. Regular prayer, Bible study, and fellowship help keep us grounded in our faith and less susceptible to the distractions of the world. Ephesians 5 verse 16 advises us to make the most of every opportunity, reminding us to use our time wisely. What steps do you take to avoid spiritual distractions? Share your tips and experiences in the comments below. Hobbies and leisure activities aren't inherently bad, but they can become a problem if they consume too much of our time. It's important to enjoy life, but we must also ensure that our hobbies don't interfere with our relationship with God. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us that there is a time for everything, including time for God. Hobbies can be a way to relax and recharge, but they shouldn't take the place of spiritual activities. If we find ourselves spending more time on our hobbies than in prayer or Bible study, it might be time to reassess our priorities. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31 reminds us to do everything for the glory of God, including how we spend our free time. The Bible encourages us to be mindful of how we spend our time. Ephesians 5 verses 15 to 16 tells us to be very careful, then how you live, not as unwise but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. This verse serves as a reminder that while hobbies are enjoyable, we must be wise in balancing them with our spiritual responsibilities. Leisure activities can become idols if we're not careful. When we prioritize hobbies over God, it can start to take His place in our hearts. Colossians 3 verse 5 warns us to put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, including anything that takes precedence over God. Finding balance involves setting limits on how much time we spend on hobbies. Just as we set boundaries in other areas of our lives, it's important to establish boundaries for leisure activities. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 6 reminds us that there is a time to search and a time to give up, helping us recognize when it's time to refocus on God. Incorporating God into our hobbies can help us maintain balance. Whether it's listening to worship music while painting, reflecting on scripture while hiking, or praying during a workout, we can invite God into our leisure activities. This helps ensure that our hobbies enhance, rather than detract from, our spiritual lives. Social media can easily consume our time if we're not careful. What starts as a quick scroll can turn into hours of mindless browsing. Ephesians 5 verses 15 to 16 reminds us to be wise in how we spend our time, making the most of every opportunity. While social media can be a tool for connection, it can also become a significant distraction. Social media can also lead to comparison and envy. As we see others' highlight reels, it's easy to feel inadequate or dissatisfied with our own lives. James 3 verse 16 warns us that where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Guarding our hearts against these negative emotions is crucial. Limiting social media use can help us stay focused on God. By setting boundaries on how much time we spend online, we can prevent it from consuming our thoughts and energy. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 reminds us that there is a time for everything, including time to disconnect and focus on God. Social media can be a source of distraction during important moments, whether it's during worship, prayer, or even time with family. The constant pull of notifications can keep us from being fully present. Proverbs 4 verse 25 advises us to let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you, reminding us to stay focused on what truly matters. It's important to be intentional about how we use social media. Instead of mindlessly scrolling, we can use it to encourage others, share our faith, and connect with people who uplift us spiritually. Colossians 4 verse 6 encourages us to let our conversations be full of grace, including our interactions online. Taking breaks from social media can help us refocus on God. Just as we need physical rest, we also need to give our minds a break from the constant influx of information. Psalm 46 verse 10 reminds us to be still and know that I am God. Disconnecting from social media allows us to reconnect with God and find peace in His presence. How do you manage your social media use to stay spiritually focused? Share your tips and experiences in the comments below. Your insights could help others find balance in their online lives. As we wrap up today's video, I hope you found valuable insights on how to navigate a world full of distractions. Remember, God calls us to focus on what truly matters, our relationship with Him. By setting boundaries and being intentional with our time, we can avoid the traps of the world and stay on the path God has laid out for us. Now, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. How do you keep your focus on God amidst all the distractions of life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights could be a source of encouragement for someone else. And before you go, if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily videos. Thank you for watching, and God bless.